The calls are coming in, as we expected, on VAR in general. Give us a shout if you want to get involved in this. 03717 223344. We're talking more specifically about that moment last night when it looked like Manchester City had got a second goal. Semenyo's flick went past Nick Pope. Replay showed that part of Haaland's leg was in an offside position. But because the semi-automated offside technology failed originally, there was a longer than usual delay. And it ended up being about 5 minutes, 30 seconds.
Well, also, Jim, just to add to that, it's also the decision from the VAR guys on whether he was interfering or not took an extra bit of time. It wasn't just an offside decision. They had to get the offside decision before they could then make a judgment on whether he's interfering or not, because if he was onside, it would have mattered.
With you. There's Ross. Jim, who stole the jam out of your donut this morning? Nobody, Ross, nobody. But there is Liam. And I've been going on about the number of checks we've had. Since VAR was introduced, there's been about 16,000 checks. Mostly go completely unnoticed, of course, because we don't hear about them. Because the VAR people and the referees decide amongst themselves that the decision they got to was the right one. So we never hear, by and large, the vast majority go unchecked. But of course, there is the odd one that stands out, such as the one last night, such as the 8-minute check between Bournemouth and Wolves in the FA Cup. The average check is about 40 seconds. That's what we hear. The average check's about 40 seconds. But then, Simon, there's Liam. Morning, guys. I'd prefer a wrong decision than kill a game with a 6-minute check. If you can't see it's wrong within a minute, then nobody cares and you should move on.
I think a lot of people share that
wrong
sentiment.
Decision.
But that's not that. A lot of people share that sentiment, including me to a degree. But we can't have that argument, because the reason VAR is there is simply to get the correct decision. So what he's actually saying is he wants rid of it, but we're not getting rid of it. So if we've got it, we then have to use it to get the right decision.
But Danny, if that decision last night was going to decide the destiny of the Premier League title and it took 5 minutes, 30 seconds, so be it. Surely, so be it. And that's what, that in itself drives the coach and horses through Liam's point.
Yes and no, because the one thing with this decision is it's not a categoric yes or no. Even though they've made the decision, it should have been disallowed. It's not a definitive. It's subjective, and it's people will sit on the fence.
We have to get the balance right. I've been writing about not wanting jumpers for goalposts for 20 years, about the technology needed to be advanced in the world's biggest game, and the fact that every other sport seemed to embrace it. And here we are with it. Its job is to be as seamless as it possibly can be. But you also have to get the balance between eliminating errors, because no one tolerates them. No one tolerated them in the previous guys when there's no technology. And the reasons why technology has been brought in is because nobody tolerated the errors, right? Against the spirit of the game. We have to be very careful. I don't mean the spirit of the game in terms of the principles of it. I mean the value of it to the fans and the value of it to the viewing audience. Right?
True.
If you lose the essence of sport, there's no logic behind people's emotional investment in sport. If you start to sanitize that and turn it into something more clinical, what is it that you're packaging and selling to people? Sport is driven by emotion. If you start killing some of the emotion by making it clinical and all about definitive, absolute margins and finicky adaptations of information, you start to lose the energy of the sport. So you've got to get that balance right. And it must be that technology must do the job better. It must be able to get to a point, even when a system fails, you've got a fallback that goes quicker than 6 minutes.
I could understand that, Sam. Yeah, but I could understand that if last night was par for the course. It was a regular occurrence that these decisions took about 5.5 minutes to arrive at. The average check is 40 seconds, Danny.
Well, I think
but of 16,000 checks that we've had, the vast majority go unmentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. I think what happens with something like this in such a big game that's being watched by so many, it brings it all. People think of all the little ones and the things they might have seen in games they've seen where it's lasted a couple of minutes, few minutes.
And that's a great point to make. But we live in a world, right, where there's something called an SLA, which is a service level agreement for your broadband, right? And your broadband's up 99% of the time. But on the 1% it's down, you will be complaining about the fact it's down, and you will not be acknowledging the fact that it's up for 99% of the time.
Yeah.
Right? So the same applies in this situation. It's the exceptions that you've got to manage. When you get it right, that's what you're paid to do. It's like someone always does a good job. What's the alternative? It does a bad job. So the bottom line is you've got to manage the exceptions. Yeah. And if 98% of the outcomes are within a framework of time that people can accept, that 2% is the area they've got to focus on. But also, it starts with the characterisation. And people have been guilty of characterising VAR as the panacea for all ails. It was never going to be wrong. It was never getting anything wrong. And the reasons why that was silly is because at some point you're always going to have an interaction with a human being. So there's always that margin of error. And so the idea that VAR was seeded in the minds of football fans and so-called football experts, that this was it, you never get anything wrong, is half the reason why people go, well, look, it still makes mistakes. Of course it makes mistakes, but it makes a damn sight less mistakes. And the question is the trade-off for the game and for the well-being of this emotional sport and its investment around the world to the fans and the viewers, the trade-off good enough for technology getting more decisions right against some essence of the game being killed through spontaneity and the lack of emotion that goes with right decisions?
That's the big thing we're asking this morning, and I think fans out there, is it the majority or the minority that think VAR is killing it for their enjoyment and the aesthetics of the game, and then whether you go to the stadium, watch it on telly? Is the majority thinking, it's all right, I can live with it, I'd rather have it and have the right? Or is the majority have the right decisions? Or is the majority saying, sure, I've had enough now?
Here's David, a Manchester City fan. David, good morning. What do you want to say in this, mate?
You okay?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, what I don't get with it is they seem to pick and choose certain moments in the game to check. Because before the Haaland incident, there was a moment with Semenyo where the commentator was saying, oh, it's a possible handball here in their penalty area, which would have been a penalty to Newcastle. But it seems to me it just gets blown over, and they didn't really go and investigate that. And it seems to happen a lot like during the game. They seem to investigate certain moments in the game and then not other ones. So I'm sat there at home watching it. I'm thinking, well, is this going to be a penalty to Newcastle or what?
No, I think you'd be amazed how many they check.
Right.
And you don't know. And I only know that because when I do commentaries and stuff, we have the earpiece of the VAR people and the refs sometimes, or the VAR people, and they are checking constantly. Even though you're watching the game move on, they're checking. They check nearly everything that's contentious.
But the viewer or the fan never gets to hear that.
Yeah, correct.
But you do. Yeah. You're in co-comms.
Depending on the game, yeah.
And you hear it, Danny, do you?
Yeah.
On your earpiece?
Yeah, so they'll be quick. So the game's going to say potential handball, bump checked, clear, bum, or whatever. You know, they're checking all the time. And there's certain things in their criteria they have to check.
Got you.
So when you hear people saying, oh, why are they checking this goal? Why? They have to check every goal.
Sure thing.
They check every penalty.
Got you. David, thanks for the call. Here's Jack, a fellow Manchester City fan. Jack, good morning. Where are you at with it all?
Morning, gents. Yeah, I kind of see it from two different parts here. One is that the decision making and who's behind the VAR, because the technology is only as good as the technology, and there's still people behind it. So the point last night specifically being subjective. One, is the technology good enough? Because we just saw a game with Liverpool and Fulham where Wirtz even said himself, it looks offside, but they had to allow a 5 centimetre allowance. And if it's my understanding, again, fans seem to be in the dark about this stuff at the moment. Was that not working last night? And so therefore is the 5 centimetre sort of allowance now not there? Because the offside, when you look at it, seeing video replays from different angles, Haaland barely looks offside anyway. So if we're allowing this allowance of 5 centimetres, that's arguable. The second part to that whole decision is subjective. When you see how fast that ball's moving, to argue that Haaland's impacted that specific goal is again, questionable. And then the third part is football is for fans. As fans, I have a season ticket at City, and when you don't know what's going on, you sat there, not clueless.
I get that. I agree with that, Jack.
A season ticket.
Yeah,
it costs a fortune to go to the football, and it's not our game anymore because it's ran so sanitary and so clinical with these decisions. I think Danny's right. Like, I would rather have a couple where, you have someone to talk about in the pub afterwards going, got that one wrong or made a mistake there, but not crucial where, you lose it. And I understand.
But Jack, with respect, mate, surely those days have gone. Everybody gets in the pub and like, well, I thought that was it. No, you're wrong. This is what happened. Yeah. No, you're wrong. No, he's right. No, you're wrong. VAR, by and large, has cleared everything up. Do you not agree?
Well, you said that, Jim. Like they get it right every time. But I would argue last night there's still a lot of arguments online that actually last night, because it's subjective, it's not right or wrong. It's an opinion of a human that sat in a VAR room nitpicking, spending 5 minutes trying to check if it's offside. Which again, apparently this technology wasn't working properly, so they had to draw lines. And if you look at the lines, the gap between the offside and onside was huge. And actually, when you look at the cameras, it was a grainy piece of footage. I'd argue that that's one thing. But again, the involvement of a player in a goal, that's still subjective. So there's still a human error that can be applied to that. And at the same time, fans in the ground. I mean, I watched them. I couldn't get a ticket last night. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough points to go.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I didn't know what was going on. The guys on TV didn't know what was going on. So, where are the fans in all of this?
Okay, good call, actually, Jack. Thanks for your time. Thanks for the call. Phil's a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Phil, good morning. What about yourself?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
I agree with the previous caller, to be fair. I mean, I think we're missing the point slightly when we talk about how many decisions VAR has got right and how many it's got wrong. I mean, as I think has been mentioned, football's not an exact science. And if the spirit of why the laws were put in place was upheld, I don't think we need VAR to get involved half as much. And if you take offside as a specific example, I mean, the offside rule was originally brought into being to prevent, forward players gaining an unfair advantage. Now, if you're talking about 5 centimetres and drawing lines across pitches, there's no advantage gained there. And I haven't seen the specific Haaland incident. However,
yeah,
by all accounts, again, it's to say he's gaining an advantage or City are gaining any advantage from that sounds to me to be completely wrong.
Phil, what do you think of Arsene Wenger's long-term plan to change the offside law? He's proposing there should be a daylight rule, daylight between the attacker and defender for an offside offence. Do you still think there's room for that?
I have to agree with him, and I don't agree with him on many things, but I think on that particular issue, I think it takes a lot of the subjective decisions away. If there's clear daylight, and then you are clearly gaining an advantage. But to with all these minuscule, people's toes being offside or their elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ludicrous. It really is killing the game.
Phil, good call. Thank you for that. Nick, the Forest fan, you'll finish as far as this section is concerned. Nick, good morning. What do you want to say?
Good morning, gent. So, for me, VAR is just trying to measure everything all the time. That's why it takes so long. That's why it's complicated. Why can't we just make offside just based on where the attacking player's feet are? And that's it. And that's easy for VAR to measure. That means it's going to be quicker. We're not sat in the cold. And that's that, really, isn't it?
Hallelujah.
Surely that solves it.
That's absolutely spot on.
If we're going to talk about drilling down, to measuring stuff, then think about how many throw-ins players encroach and move forward. That's not measured particularly well, is it?
The feet argument is the best one.
Apply everything equally.
Best one.
So, Nick, you want to change the law just like Wenger wants to change the law?
No, the Wenger one is ridiculous because what would happen is daylight, it's still got to be measured somewhere. You'd still have the line. But the problem is you would then get defenders playing more cautiously and sitting deeper. One of the great things about the Premier League is a lot of teams now will squeeze up and try and condense the space and pressing football on the front foot, and then teams will play over the top or through them, and lots of counter-attacks. It's a dynamic game that we're watching.
But you don't need to measure daylight. You can.
Well, there still comes a time where it goes
daylight via your own vision.
Well, no, not from watching on the screen. You'd still have to measure it. You'd still have a time where it goes from being next to somebody's body to daylight. And what is it? 5 millimeters, whatever it is. There's still a problem in measurements.
But the tech could do that, couldn't it? AI.
Yeah, but the feet is easier. This nonsense about measuring armpits and people's shoulders and all that stuff. Feet is everything because it gives the attacker the chance to lean forward and get the benefit of the doubt with his feet still in line with the defenders. Daylight's going to just cause defenders to play deeper.
Here's Harry's former assistant, Kevin Bond, enjoying the show, guys. VAR got themselves in a right mess last night, says Kevin. This should not be their call. Teams should be appealing these decisions, not VAR. They're trialling this in Spain.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed it will come here.
What is it, 3 a game?
Yeah.
Right.
I don't mind that.
Is it more democratic that way?
Well, then you'll have and that's not a bad point. But then you'll have the argument about how many appeals you get.
Yeah.
Like how many substitutes you need. Now it will be 3 appeals, then it'll be 5 appeals, then it'll be 7 appeals, then it'll be 10 appeals, and then it'll be the reasons why they've lost games because they didn't have enough appeals.
Yeah.
So there's no perfect solution. You've got to ask yourself how you got there. How have we got here? Why are we at this position now?
Right.
And why are we in this circumstance? Because the caller talks about the nature of the game and what's been forgotten in all this and the outcomes that people expect. The reasons why we're here is because nobody, football fan, football pundit, football manager, football expert, was prepared to accept a referee on the field making decisions. And now all of a sudden, the referee on the field is so valuable. Whereas once upon a time, he was someone that was there to be lambasted and abused and castigated and told he couldn't do his job. So now he's got some tech support. And because that tech support has a little bit of context and nuance and a bit of complexity to it, people aren't interested in that particular outcome. They want to go back to the original outcome that they weren't interested in the first place.
Do you think coaches and players, if asked the question again, now. Now we've evolved and had it and used it and experienced it. Do you think the majority of them would be against or still engaged with it and wanting it?
Well, you've got the mindset of a player.
Well,
You
I
can
think
speak to that.
I think it would be the top clubs and managers and players that would want it.
Do you?
Yeah, because
Despite the fact that it's biased, according to Pep.
As
They've
an
got
owner,
agenda.
as
No, I
an
mean,
owner,
because
Simon, would you
you're-
still want it?
Yeah, I want it to sophisticate itself, though, and I want it to be representing itself properly in the media, that it wasn't going to cure every single problem. The subjectivity still existed, and there was going to be a margin, but that margin was far less, and there were far less mistakes.
Yeah.
And people will say, of course, that should be the case. But the advertising for this product, the marketing of this product, and the settling in of this product has not been good enough, and it's seeded a narrative which very vociferous voices have been able to carry and misrepresent, I think.
just quickly, Jim, as well.
Well,
I've got to say this.
Including your
as
mate
well.
Lineker.
I've got to say this. I watch a lot of European games and in the different leagues, as you'll see a lot of football. We still have the best officials. Our games are still refereed the best.
Yeah, but then we have other managers in this country like Arteta a year ago turning around and saying that we don't have that. We have European referees that are far better, until someone rammed it down his throat that actually they weren't.
What's happened to you, Danny? Like a year ago or so, you called
Well, I've
them
always
thick.
one particular.
He evolves.
official, yeah.
All right.